Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're so happy to have you here today. We have the wonderful and amazing, smart Mark Peck. And I'll tell you a little bit about him. He is a business development leader, fintech and alternative assets, fintech executive for over 15 years of experience in driving revenue growth, expanding strategic partnerships, and leading business development in private markets. With a strong experience in portfolio construction and alternative assets, Mark and his dedicated team focus on tax advantage investing. Yes, including self-directed IRAs and more. And today we are going to talk about more. Let me read you why this is so important. Uh, Mark works for a company called Directed IRA, and they are work with companies, people, mostly with people and with companies who have like me, have self-directed IRAs so that we can invest in whatever we want without having to do certain qualifications. But here's this quote, and I think this applies so well to IRAs. Every time you borrow money, you're robbing your future self. This is from Nathan Morris, a personal finance expert, speaker, and financial coach. And when you have your own Roth IRA, you don't have to borrow from the bank and go in debt. You could borrow from yourself and invest and have that investment make money for you so that you always have money. So, Mark, welcome. We're so happy to have you here. Uh,
Thank you. Such a pleasure to be here with you in the Nest Egg group. Thanks for so much for having me. I think you teed it up perfectly. Excited to talk about tax advantage investing and how it can help you, create an independent income future for yourself.
Absolutely. And you do quite a few different arenas. Like when I started invest or created my own IRA with a company way, way, way back in the 80s, I think it was the 80s or 90s, there was just self-directed IRA. That was it. They didn't have
Yeah.
these other HSAs and 401ks. They hadn't figured out that they could do all of that at that time. So that's come a long way in the last 40 years or so.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right.
So
There's a great array of different choices depending on your goals and what assets you have.
so we work with a lot of business people. So tell us if you're a business person and have your own company, or even if you are a small business person like working in direct sales. Can you tell us what advantages and how they would go about like doing a 401k, for instance, or what else could they do?
Yeah, great question. So, a lot of us have encountered retirement accounts through our employer when you work for a big corporation. That's a common story. What's not so well known are some of the options for business owners who might own and operate their own company, whether it's small, just a couple of people, or maybe a sole proprietorship, or a little bit of a larger business, 10, 20 employees. There's some pretty powerful choices. There's a couple of options. One is an IRA type, so an individual retirement account type. It's known as a SEP IRA, SEP. So SEP IRAs are great because they allow the employer to make contributions on behalf of the company for their employees, but it's a lot simpler and has less bells and whistles and more importantly, less cost than a big traditional 401k plan. So SEP IRAs can be really powerful. You can self-direct those also. And then there's a very specialized and exciting account type called an individual 401k or solo K. And those are really for the sole proprietor, like 1099 contractor type. If you have a business, if you're a real estate agent, it works very well for those. It allows you to create your own 401k just for yourself or your spouse. So it's not a good fit if you have employees in a larger group. It's really just for that individual, but it allows you to do some amazing things. You can get a lot of money into the account, create tax deferrals for both your business and you personally. And you can do things like you said at the top of taking a personal loan from your 401k that helps bank yourself instead of relying on outside financing, which I believe the quote was, "You're stealing from your future success," right? So it's a great option there.
Yeah, people don't realize when they buy a house, for instance, that they pay three times the amount of the cost of the house by
Mm,
borrowing the money.
right.
Most
Powerful
people don't
compounding.
have. Most people
Yeah.
can't pay cash. So, well, that's just one example. Anyway, and if you were an investor lending that money, wouldn't that be great? Which you can do
True.
you can do this out of a 401k, right? You still can have your money working for you outside of the company, right? As well as inside the company.
Yeah, so there's things to think about just getting money in, right? And that's usually like a tax mitigation strategy. So you're thinking about how do I reduce my my overall tax bill, and how do I just get money into that tax advantaged account? There's a couple different flavors, but then you're right, once the money is into the account, you can think about how do you put it to work for you. Traditionally, you've got Wall Street options like mutual funds, stocks, bonds, and those certainly have a place in the portfolio. However, for most folks, they look when they get are fortunate to have a reasonable size portfolio or just looking to diversify because of their interests, they want to look and find other opportunities outside those traditional assets, and that's where you can self-direct these accounts, whether it's an IRA or HSA, 401k, all of them have the characteristic that allows you to self-direct and choose something like a real estate investment. You mentioned the equity side of it, or you can be the lender and act as the bank out of your account. You can also invest in private companies. So if your friend creates a startup, you can invest in them through your 401k or IRA.
Okay. And then you said that what about contributing to my HSA?
So those are going to have the same, guidelines you experience anywhere, right? So there's a limit each year the IRS puts on that. It's usually a few $1,000s and it changes each year. So you can contribute a certain amount. Once you've got the dollars in there, you're able to self-direct it. And actually, you can self-direct HSA monies into stocks and brokerage accounts. And if you're ready, you can take it a step further and do something like we offer, which is really self-directing into alternatives. So there's a few levels of opportunity. Not everybody needs to jump, with both feet into the pool, if you will. Doing alternatives might not be suitable for at your time in life, but just knowing that you can build up the assets, continue to grow them, and capture that compounding return without paying taxes just sets you up with a lot of optionality as you go throughout the journey.
Right. So you use your 401k to reduce your tax position because you
Hmm.
got your money the in the IRA, which protects it. But then I thought you could then borrow the money back or use the money inside your own business and take it back the following year or portions of it to run the business. Isn't there something like that?
Not super familiar with
401.
that strategy, but with the 401k, you can take a personal loan out of the account. So you can
Okay.
take a loan out of the 401k to yourself. It doesn't have to be earmarked for anything. So it's not like a hardship distribution where you're taking it out due to some difficulty. It's just a loan you make to yourself. You could use it for
Okay.
anything, which could be reinvesting into your business, as you mentioned.
Mhm.
You could also be using it for a deposit if you want to buy a home for personal use. And you can do that. You're banking yourself and you're paying the interest back to your 401k instead of to that outside party.
But you could borrow it, or your company could borrow it, and there's not a problem. Like I can't borrow from my regular Roth account
Correct.
for me.
Yeah, you can't borrow from an IRA, but you can borrow from a 401k. It's an important
Right.
distinction. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, that's huge, really, when you think about it. And is there a limit on how much you could put into your 401k? Does it
There
just,
are limits for contributions each year. So
okay.
the nice thing with 401ks, the limits are much higher than an IRA. Again, for IRAs, think you're in the six, seven, $8,000
Mhm.
range each year. For 401ks, you're able to get a lot more into that account, so you can be contributing, tens of thousands of dollars each year. And some of that goes in on behalf of the company, and some goes in for you personally. So there's different ways you can play with those tax advantages. I think you mentioned two Roth accounts or after tax accounts. Those are very powerful also. And 401ks can allow you to make after tax Roth contributions, just like an IRA too. So you can have both account types within the 401k.
Okay. Can it be all in one, like all in the Roth?
It could be, yeah. And
Okay.
the nice thing is the 401k, think it's like a bigger umbrella and you can hold the different types underneath it. Whereas IRAs are more distinct, right? If you have a traditional or rollover IRA, that's its own account and sits alone. If you then have a Roth IRA, Peggy's self-directed Roth IRA, that sits separately from that IRA. So they're fully separate entities. Whereas underneath the 401k, you can utilize them more in concert together.
Oh, you could have your traditional Roth account inside the 401. So tell me how that looks. So I have a business, I have a 401k, and I have a individual Roth. So I want them both to be Roths. How are you saying this umbrella?
So the 401k has the ability to make pre-tax contributions or traditional contributions. They're pre-tax, they haven't been taxed, and they reduce your taxes for the current year. So if you put in $25,000, that's going to reduce your taxes by $25,000 for that year. Roth is after tax, and so you've already paid the money on it. So you're not going to reduce your tax bill, but you're getting it in tax advantaged where if you hold it until you reach retirement age, you pay no taxes when it's distributed. So in a 401k, you can have both of those money types under one account, whereas IRAs, they have to be held distinctly. So it's a convenience factor and it helps you get more money into those via the 401k.
So if I have a Roth, can I have a Roth 401 and a traditional 401?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so can I backdoor the
Yeah.
so I could take my 401. So I have a 401 traditional to lower my tax position.
hmm
Can I now take roll either into my personal Roth or into my 401 Roth?
Yes, you would convert it. So you pay the taxes on it. That's the conversion, capital C. And yes, you can do that within the 401k, or you could be rolling it out to your IRA. It kind of depends on your circumstance. You don't always have
Sure.
to have both of them, but the idea, yes, fundamentally is you can contribute a lot of money depending on the years and depending on your tax circumstance. You might want to convert some of that into the after-tax Roth. And that's really a personal planning question that
Mhm.
you'll face each year with some different variables depending on what's going on in your life.
Right, and you need to speak to your tax advisor about that
Yeah,
before
it'll be
you do
unique to your
anything.
circumstance. If you have a new job or, your spouse does something different, maybe they create a new business or something, those are going to create years that are more advantageous to do one or the other. And maybe just think about that as a spectrum of do you want to defer taxes or do you want to get it into your after-tax Roth account for the long growth potential?
Yeah, well, we like the long growth potential without having to pay taxes. Uh,
For sure.
I like to keep the Roth growing. For
Absolutely.
sure, because of that. People don't realize when they go into a traditional 401 and get that matching, and then the rest of it gets invested, that at the end, they're going to end up paying quite a bit of it to the government.
Sure. That's
Whereas
so true.
if they had paid the taxes in the year it was received, all the money it earned would not be taxable. And
You're
people,
right. It just really accelerates the compounding.
yeah, and people don't get that. Right. When you're paying money to the government, yeah, it takes away the compounding.
It certainly reduces it, that's for sure.
Yeah, we love compounding, and that doesn't always happen in
It's how
many,
you build,
many kinds of different investments.
yeah, that's how you build your nest egg, right?
Right. Yeah, while you're young, build, go into growth, and as you get older, you want to get into cash flow. So you need those first 30, 40 years for your growth time so that because you can't get the same returns when we're talking real estate, you can't get the same returns on investment when it's cash flow. But if you leave it in for growth because they're a construction and they're building or they're rehabbing and then they turn around and sell it, that's when you make your growth money. And then when you get to a point where you just want cash flow coming in, you find the already built that you get your 9, 10, 11, 12%
Perfect.
cash flow when and if you can find it. There's so many predictions about what cap rates are going to do over the next few years. It's crazy, just crazy. So everybody has to do their due diligence before they invest. There's nothing
Right?
worse than being frustrated or disappointed.
Well,
because
it's so true with self-directing, right? And we are fortunate to serve very educated and experienced investors. But even the most, grizzled self-directed veteran needs a playbook and a repeatable process, right? And I think that's part of what you do with your work, right? Is helping them create an actionable checklist, think through the opportunity, because they've got to determine whether it's the right fit for them or not. We play our role as a guiding hand to make sure that you play by the rules of the IRS and the Department of Labor that meet the retirement account rules. But when it comes to choosing the investment and putting that money to work, we are going to take a hands-off approach on the recommendation. We're going to facilitate whatever you want to do, keep it within the rules, but you've got to choose the property or choose the manager you're going to use. And that's where you need to arm yourself with good diligence tools as one of these self-directed investors for sure.
yeah, exactly. That's why we offer our course, the ultimate investment protection system, for exactly
Yeah,
that. Because most people don't know the right questions to ask. And even though I've worked with many, many good sponsors, they still don't have everything in the executive plan that you
sure.
need to know. That's why you need to have that checklist. So you say, okay, this is missing. I need to find this out. If you don't have that written down, and I'm just going to tell you a quick story. I was talking to a wealth manager the other day, and one of his clients came to him. He's about $30 million group, person, family, And he went to his wealth manager because there was a capital call on a self-storage ground up build. And he said he didn't know whether he wanted to answer the capital call or not. And I said, did he ask this question? And the wealth manager didn't know because the wealth manager doesn't use my checklist. So I haven't heard back on that answer, but my bet is he doesn't have a checklist because, they people don't put things in writing. And once you put that list together, you don't have to remember anymore. It's right there for you. Every time I look at a deal, I open a new spreadsheet with the same questions on it so that it goes
Yeah.
with that opportunity because they're all
And we
different.
hear that from professional investors all the time too, right? Other folks like yourself and people who've been doing this a long time always stress that checklist, whether you're a huge institutional investor that's been doing this for a long time, somebody just beginning with their first deal, or on your 10th deal, having a repeatable process helps you be efficient and just help you, not have any gaps, right? So I think we all find value in that to stay organized, especially when you're learning something new too. But even when you are experienced, honing the list and improving it to, based on your experience is so critical, right?
It certainly is so critical. And having somebody take a second look. You only come from your viewpoint. Find somebody that comes from a little bit different viewpoint that could review that also. Somebody that's experienced. Don't ask your dog to look at it. Right? Get somebody that's actually been an investor who has lots of experience and have them look at that. Just do a quick look over. Give me your checklist and I'll go look it over. Of course,
Perfect.
me, I'll use my checklist. It takes a long time to review something like that, really does. But it's worth having it. We had some fella, he could have opened escrow instead of being in court because
Oof,
yeah, he didn't open escrow. He needed the investor wanted their money back. He said he would pay them back and she would have to sign off on her ownership. She never signed off on her ownership and she got the money. But in escrow, that would not have ever happened. They would not have allowed one thing to happen without the other. She would not have gotten paid until all the documents were signed. So just it's little things like that, right? It costs a couple $100 to do something like that. Now it's hundreds of thousands of dollars going to court. And she's
ouch.
wrong, and she admitted it. And I don't know why they're still going back to court, but hey, stuff like that happens. Just avoid. You don't need, nobody needs that extra expense. Take that extra minute to write down your due diligence list,
So
right?
true.
Take that
Yeah.
extra minute to talk to Mark about what you're looking at and what kind of questions you might not be asking or what you are asking, and is that sufficient, right? Or have they ever worked with this that because they cannot recommend anything or anyone, but they have so many investors. If there's an investor that's gone wrong, these guys might know about it. And
Exactly. So true. Yeah.
right, and you could say, well, we've got other people that have lost their money with this person or this group. I don't know if you would do that or not, but that would
Well,
be
you raise a good point. So for us, I mentioned that we don't review the suitability of an investment
right.
the same way that a broker dealer or a wealth manager is required to. But what we do is before we process any investment, we'll do a bad actor check on that company. We want to make sure they're not in trouble with FINRA or any regulatory bodies, national mortgage lenders if they're in the real estate business, things like that. So we do those checks to make sure the company it doesn't have any bad actors. And then we have our own checklist internally that we work through that really is just about making sure that the investment meets all the guidelines based on the account type. So back to this idea of an IRA or an HSA, they have generally the same rules, but a little bit of uniqueness to each one of them. And so we're just working through that to make sure that the company's in good order, all the paperwork is there, it's been filed correctly, and that it's permissible based on the account you're transacting with. So, we don't always catch bad actors, but we often do, and just at least help our clients ask those right questions and make sure they ask the hard questions, so that if there is anything going on, we can all try to catch it before it's too late.
Great. That's fantastic. I haven't heard any other company say they do that. Look for the bad actors.
Yeah, you really should be, right? It's like a know your business check because anytime you're interacting with a business, in order to meet regulatory requirements, you need to know who you're transacting with. So we do a check on their principles.
Good, because so many people have lost so much money over the last few years. It's very
Mm.
sad. And a lot of that was retirement money, right? Because that's what people want to build. So sadly, they have to start over again, unless they were smart enough not to put more than 20 or 25% of what they have in any one deal.
Right, right.
That's ours. What else? Anything else you have to say about your company and what you all do?
Yeah, thanks so much. I think uh, we are very passionate about making investing in alternatives easy. They can be a little bit daunting sometimes, especially if you're new to the business. But I think what's exciting about them and worth the educational process and investing in yourself, investing in your own knowledge, is that these account types and the strategies you work on, they really help people invest in what they know, in communities they care about. So you can invest in your local city, in your local state, in a business or a neighborhood that you know well and you feel passionate about. You're never going to get that access through public markets. It doesn't mean that public markets are bad. It's just that by pairing the two of them together and finding the right balance, you're able to express your own values and interests far more specifically. I think that's what's so exciting about the self-directed accounts is really getting to express and control your money far beyond what traditional assets will offer you.
I agree 100% with that. That is really great. So, you want to get a hold of Mark and have a conversation with him, and here is how you get a hold of him. And you can see this, all right, Mark?
Yeah, thanks so much. I really appreciate your time, Peggy. Thank you for having me. Would love to talk
Absolutely.
with any of the folks in the network. You see my information there. First name Mark, last name Peck. Directedira.com is our website. We'd love for you to visit us there. If you want to email me, it's mark.peck@directedira.com, and the phone number is 602-362-4964. And thanks so much for having me. A pleasure to be here.
And that is in Arizona, yes?
Yes, we're based in Arizona, so we've got a Southwest company there, headquartered in Phoenix, and we've got about 60 people working in the trust company today, and we're a
Wow.
fast-growing group, and we love to work with investors and folks of all shapes and sizes. So, ask us your questions, and hopefully we can help you make an informed decision.
That's great. I thank you very, very much. And I
Thanks,
need
Peggy.
to, yeah, what happened? Here we go. I am so glad that you were here today. This has just been wonderful.
Thank you.
So,
My pleasure. Thanks for
yeah,
inviting me.
when things change or new things come up, then let's have another conversation.
Please. Yeah, I'll look forward if you don't mind when you publish this and if it's ready, like just let me know and I'd love to like share a copy on my LinkedIn and stuff and make sure you and I stay in touch. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay.